Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Abhir Ma Eti Rudrayate Dakshinamukam Te Namam Pahi Nityam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the ever-changing to the unchanging. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, and guide us evermore with thy loving presence. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Good morning. Our topic today is Swami Brahmananda. Friday was the 162nd birth anniversary of Swami Brahmananda. We mark that occasion with a special service early in the morning on his actual birthday, and then on a talk about him on an adjacent Sunday. So that's the topic. We'll start with a sketch of his life, then fill in with stories about Swami Brahmananda from different parts of his life, and conclude with a detailed description of his passing. He was born Rakal Chandra Ghosh in January of 1863 in a village about 36 miles from Calcutta. He lived almost 60 years, dying in 1922. As a boy, he was handsome, energetic, good at sports, gardening, and fishing. His early academic career was excellent, till he lost interest in it. He was fond of devotional singing. When the village minstrel would sing kirtan, he would listen with rapt attention. When the wandering mendicants would come through and sing songs with devotion to Sri Krishna or to the Divine Mother, he would sometimes get lost in ecstasy. He would practice meditation in the Kali temple near his house, and during the worship of the Divine Mother, Durga, sit behind the priest and meditate like a yogi. From his childhood, Rakal was quiet by nature and deeply religious. His father started a school in the village so that his son could be educated. His father was a zemindar. He owned a lot of property, was a wealthy man. And it wasn't too long before the school master that was hired realized that he'd have to stop corporal punishment, because every time he rapped the knuckles of someone because they'd misbehaved or had done something that they shouldn't have done or didn't do something that they should do, not only the child that was being disciplined would cry, Rakal would also cry. He was never disciplined himself, but his feeling for the person that was being hurt stopped the school teacher from doing the corporal punishment. He was extremely strong. The boys his age had a hard time to cope with him in wrestling and other physical things. At dusk, when the evening service was being performed, Rakal would be seen standing before the deity with great devotion. At the age of 12, his father sent him to Calcutta to live with his stepmother's family. His own mother had died when he was 5, and she was probably the one who named him Rakal, which is a significant name, as we'll find out. Now, at that time, he lived in the same district as Narendranath Datta went to the same school, went to the same gymnasium. They became fast friends, and it was lifelong. So Narendranath later became Swami Vivekananda. Meanwhile, at Dakshineswar, Sri Ramakrishna, who would later become his spiritual teacher, prayed for a pure-hearted young man with deep love of God who could stay with him and imbibe his deeper teaching, someone with whom he could be completely comfortable in every way. He had a vision. Narrating it, Ramakrishna said, "Just a few days before Rakhal's coming, I saw the Divine Mother putting a child in my lap, saying, 'This is your son.' I shuddered. 'What do you mean?' Then she explained with a smile, 'This is your spiritual child,' and I was comforted." Sometime in the middle of 1881, Sri Ramakrishna had another vision. He saw two beautiful young boys dancing on a full-blown lotus that was floating on the Ganga. One of the boys was Sri Krishna, and the other was the same boy whom the mother had previously placed in his lap. That very day, Rakhal, crossing the Ganges, came to Dakshineswar from Konagar, and the master immediately recognized him as his spiritual son. Sri Ramakrishna later said, Rakhal has the keen intelligence of a monarch. He could rule a kingdom if he wished. In the 5 years between 1881 and 1886, Sri Ramakrishna trained Rakhal. He had many spiritual experiences, including samadhi. After the passing of Ramakrishna, Rakhal renounced the world and took monastic vows with his brother disciples and became Swami Brahmananda. Vivekananda, that same Narendranath Datta that I mentioned earlier, called him Raja, which means king, because of Sri Ramakrishna's assessment of his intelligence. And Rakhal was later called Maharaj or Raja Maharaj in our order, great king. From late January of 1889, from late December of 1889 to January of 1895, Swami Brahmananda lived the life of an itinerant monk. No money, no possessions, begging his food. Practicing severe spiritual disciplines. Most of the time, he was with one of his brother disciples. At the insistence of Sri Sarada Devi, Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda, they were worried that he wouldn't look after himself, that he would get lost in his meditation, and no one would beg food for him. So they sent someone along to take care of him. While in Omkarnath on the river Narmada with Swami Subodhananda, Swami Brahmananda was once in samadhi for 6 days and nights without a break. This is exceptional. None of the other direct disciples, including Swami Vivekananda, had this experience. They went from Omkarnath to the Panchavati, where Sita and Rama were said to spend their exile. And it was here that he again went into samadhi for 3 days. Subodhananda was both had both a feeling of extreme joy and anxiety being there present when Maharaj was in these exalted states. The anxiety was because he was afraid that Rakhal would leave his body in the state of samadhi, because that's often what happens when people have this final experience of nirvikalpa samadhi. Their body doesn't last. So he knew the tricks of the trade from being with Sri Ramakrishna, how to bring the mind back down, and he was very careful to apply all that he knew to keep Rakhal with them. While they were in Vrindavan, one of Ramakrishna's admirers, and you could say disciples, Swami Sri Ramakrishna had a great effect on Vijay Krishna Goswami's spiritual life. He was a saint himself. Vijay Krishna Goswami saw that Rakal didn't have, and he called him Rakal, because that's how he knew him as a boy. Didn't have a mosquito net, so he bought him one, good one, carefully laid it out so that he wouldn't get bit by the many mosquitoes that wanted to feast on the devotees in Vrindavan. So they were very, they could speak freely to one another. Vijay Krishna asked him, he said, your master, Sri Ramakrishna, gave you everything that is covetable in spiritual life, visions and samadhi. Why then do you behave like a beggar, practicing so much austerity? You already have these things. Brahmananda humbly answered, the experiences and visions that I received by his grace in his presence, I'm now trying to attain as my permanent possession. He knew where he was going because he'd been there. But by his intense effort, he was now trying to get back there and retain those experiences as his own. Sri Krishna says something similar in the Bhagavatam to Uddhava. Uddhava was his close friend. Krishna said, if you want to properly realize any spiritual truth, you must go to some solitary place and practice spiritual disciplines. Spiritual disciplines means the repetition of God's name, meditation, and so forth. I may grant you some miraculous visions and experiences, but that won't be enough. It is much greater to contemplate and meditate directly on the Lord through your own effort. So Brahmananda knew this. In 1895, at the exhortation of then world-famous Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda finally returned to Calcutta. His 6 years of wandering had been years of great spiritual growth, and on his return, everyone was amazed to see his shining face, beaming with indescribable joy. He had become very calm and grave. The boyish youth who had gone out traveling in 1889 returned a mature man, vitally changed. He was steadfast, stalwart, enduring, self-reliant, the master of innumerable spiritual experiences. He was now well established within himself. And he was now qualified with just a bit more training to rule both a spiritual and material kingdom. Vivekananda handed over the responsibility of the fledgling Ramakrishna movement mainly to Swami Brahmananda and Saradananda before he died. He had tremendous faith in Brahmananda's judgment and loyalty. He said, others may desert me, but Raja will stand by me till the last. When Vivekananda left his body, Brahmananda cried like a baby over his body. He said as Swami Saradananda lifted him up, it is as if the entire Himalayan mountain range has disappeared from before my eyes. They had great respect for one another. Now, I want to start with a story from the wandering days that I just mentioned. At this time, they were in Ayodhya, the birthplace of Sri Ramachandra. And he was with another brother disciple, Swami Turiyananda, who was it was his custom to go out and beg food for both of them every day. And one day, the only thing he could get was boiled kachu, which is an edible root, but not very. As soon as they had eaten it, their throats began to sting and burn, and gradually their mouths and tongues swelled. Turiyananda somehow got the antidote for this, and that night, Brahmananda was speaking with Ramakrishna mentally, and he said, "Master, why did you take me away from hearth and home if you could not provide a morsel of food in this life? Tomorrow morning," you see, this is Ramakrishna's son. He can talk to him this way. "Tomorrow morning, if I get hot khichdi," that is rice and preparation of rice and lentils, "if I get hot khichdi and pickles, I'll understand that you're with me." The next morning, the Swamis went to bathe in the Saraju River. A monk arrived and, addressing Swami Brahmananda, said, "I understand that both of you fasted yesterday. Please come to my cottage and have some prasad, which I have offered to Lord Rama." The monk served hot khichdi and pickles to the Swamis. It was well cooked. They'd been fasting and they greatly enjoyed the meal. As they were eating, the monk said, "Blessed am I. For the last 24 years, I've been practicing sadhana here in order to have the vision or hear the voice of my chosen ideal, Lord Ramachandra. And today the Lord blessed me." Tears trickled from his eyes. At Brahmananda's request, he continued, "While I was asleep last night, I found that Lord Rama touched my body with his soft hand and said, 'Get up. I'm hungry. Cook khichdi and offer it.'" This is at 2 a.m. "Cook khichdi and offer it to me. Tomorrow morning, you'll see two devotees bathing at the ghat on the Saraju River. They're fasting. Offer my prasad to them." Then he looked at Brahmananda and said, "It is by your grace that I had the vision of my chosen ideal." So these are the kind of things that that would happen around the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna. Now we'll go to the latter part of his life. He died in 1922. This was 1921, and the reminiscence is by Swami Sarvagyananda. In 1921, I was admitted as a student to the Ramakrishna Mission Students' Home in Madras. Now, Madras is now Chennai. So every time I say Madras, it means Chennai. It's the same place. One day, Ramaswamy Iyengar, who was in charge of the students' home, said, "Take some vegetables to Swami Brahmananda, who was staying at the Madras Mat that was within walking distance. I was a simple village boy. He placed some long snake gourds into my outstretched arms, and I took them and held them up against my chest. Then he said, 'Place them at Swami Brahmananda's feet and bow down to him.' I carried those vegetables to Raja Maharaj, not so much out of respect for him, but out of fear for Mr. Iyengar. On the way to the monastery, which was a mile away, I saw Swami Brahmananda and Swami Shivananda coming towards me. They were at the corner of the street, going to the students' home. I didn't know what to do. I was too afraid to disregard Mr. Iyengar's instructions. So right there on the street, I bowed down, touching Swami Brahmananda's feet with my head. But what to do? My arms were full of the snake gourds. How was I to get up? Just then, Maharaj lifted me up. How fortunate I am. I still feel that Maharaj, without my realizing it, lifted me up once and for all. It was because of his greatness and not my devotion, that I was blessed by the spiritual son of Ramakrishna. He then told me to take the vegetables to the monastery, as Mr. Iyengar had instructed, and return to the student's home. I've had many experiences in my long life, but this incident is as vivid as if it happened yesterday. And then in contrast, he narrates the story of a devotee named Narayana Swami Iyer, who was a gardener, a bachelor, took care of his mother, worked in a garden for 8 rupees a month. So he wasn't one of these big guys that would come to the Swamis, the movers and shakers. He read the Brahmavada, the magazine of the Ramakrishna Mission, and knew all the literature about Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, the direct disciples. He was a real sincere devotee. He had a great desire to touch someone who had touched Sri Ramakrishna. Holy Mother came to Madras in 1910, and he wasn't able to fulfill his desire then because when she was there, a close relative died, and he couldn't leave. Then in 1921, 11 years later, when Swami Brahmananda was in Madras, Narayana Swami was again hopeful. He went to see Maharaj at the monastery. Finding that he was not there, he went to the student's home. Narayana Swami was the embodiment of humility. He arrived at 1:30 in the afternoon. Maharaj usually rested then after lunch, and upon arrival, Maharaj's attendant scolded Narayana Swami for coming at such an inconvenient hour. What kind of devotee are you? You know how this goes on. We're about to take our rest and you show up, Okay. Maharaj overheard the conversation, might have been louder than a conversation, and said, let him come in. I later asked Narayana Swami about this meeting. He said, I went inside the room. I put the flowers and fruits near Maharaj's feet. Then, holding his feet, I touched them with my head. Tears were flowing from my eyes. I don't know how long I was there. I was overwhelmed with joy. I felt my desire had been fulfilled. I had touched Maharaj, who had been touched by Sri Ramakrishna. He put his hand on my head and blessed me and asked me to stand up. I saw his serene face, then facing him, I walked backwards from the room as a sign of respect. Meeting the spiritual son of Ramakrishna was the greatest moment of my life. The Swami continues, now towards the end of my life, I feel thrilled when I recall these memories of those days. Narayana Swami touched the feet of Maharaj out of devotion, while I touched them out of fear, but the result was the same. Now, this is a narration by Swami Ambikananda. Swami Ambikananda was the son of Navagopal and Nistarini Ghosh, who were close devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. My parents, Nistarini and Navagopal Ghosh, were devotees of Ramakrishna and often visited him at Dakshineswar. During her pregnancy, my mother decided that if a son were born to her, she would dedicate her son to the service of Sri Ramakrishna. Through the grace of the Lord, I was a son born to her. She resolved to keep her promise. When I was a few weeks old, my mother carried me snugly bundled up in a sheet to Dakshineswar. My father accompanied us. Sri Ramakrishna was in an ecstatic mood when they came up, standing alone. He said to my mother, "What have you brought for me?" Mother placed me at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna, saying, "I have brought you this offering." Ramakrishna looked at me for a few moments and said, "Ah, what a nice child. You offer it to me. Good." Then he took me on his lap, placed his right palm on my head as a blessing, and then placed me back in my mother's arms, saying, "Take care of this child. Take care of him now, but know that he belongs to me. In due time, I will take him back." So many years later, after Vivekananda passed away, Swami Brahmananda and Swami Turiyananda were in Vrindavan practicing austerities. My father took me there as well. Whenever my father visited the Swamis, I would go along. Now, he was living at home. It doesn't say how old he was, but you could say he's probably a young teenager, maybe an older teenager. Whenever my father visited the Swamis, I would go along. As I knew Swami Turiyananda intimately, I would pass most of my time with him. Maharaj lived in an adjacent room. Every time I called on Swami Turiyananda, I would bow down to him, then slowly, quietly open the door to Swami Brahmananda's room and bow down to him from the door. Somehow I was nervous in his presence, and so would not go inside the room and bow down or touch his feet. Seeing this strange behavior, one day Swami Turiyananda said, "What is this? Go in and bow down to Maharaj. Touch his blessed feet." With trepidation, I entered the room and did as told, and then stood silently by Maharaj. He looked at me, a gracious look, and said affectionately, "Child, massage my feet." With these words, he lay down, and I began to massage him, still nervous. He sensed it immediately and said, "My son, don't be nervous." He then touched my back, and with his touch there came a complete transformation. I seemed to lose all strength and helplessly lay down at his feet. After a while, Maharaj said, "Ah, I asked you to massage my feet, and you're making a pillow of them." My heart was filled with unspeakable joy. I sat up and said, "You've done something to me." Then I began to laugh, unable to hold the joy within. All my fear was gone. And for the first time, I had a taste of God's love emanating from Maharaj. So, Ramakrishna said, "In due time, I'll take him back." So, there you have it. Now, this is about spiritual instruction. And the narrator is Swami Kashishwarananda. And again, it's later in Swami Brahmananda's life. It's about 1920. And he and his friends were visiting the Mat, and they knew Swami Brahmananda, but in a very casual way. They didn't, at that time, have the intention of becoming monastics. But they knew him, and they enjoyed his company. So it was possibly 1920. Indu of Calcutta Students' Home, who later became Swami Devatmananda, Fani, and I, planned to give up our studies and take up agriculture as our vocation. Now, this is crazy. These are These are young men who are, upper middle class, and they're expected to get an education and get decent jobs. They're not expected to go off and till the land. So this would not be good news for their parents. Swami Devatmananda later came to America and worked a little bit in New York, and then started our Vedanta Center in Portland, Oregon, worked there till his death. So, Indu, that's Devatmananda, Pani, and I planned to give up our studies and take up agriculture as our vocation. One morning, Indu and I went to Balaram Boshe's house to tell Raja Maharaj, to tell Swami Brahmananda, he was staying there, of our decision. During an opportune moment, we told him, we're going to stop our studies. Immediately, he said, wait, why don't you come here and join the monastery? He was pretty reserved in such matters. He was very reserved in such matters. He wouldn't give spiritual instruction to people who got on their knees and begged him and sometimes waited for years. And here he's saying, well, don't give up your studies. Why don't you join the monastery, become monks? He would very rarely make such statements to anyone. But Swami Kashishwarananda says, but if any such oracle emerged from his mouth, it would inevitably bear fruit. After hearing this offer, we said, no, Maharaj, we're going to do farming. We've decided. We're not going to study. We're going to be farmers. Then for half an hour, he gave us many suggestions and advice about agriculture and farming. As Sri Ramakrishna said, he had the keen intelligence of a king. He knew about all kinds of things. And people would come to him for advice on writing plays, literature, architecture, just all kinds of things, gardening. So after the discourse on agriculture, he said, in conclusion, O my mind, you do not know how to farm. Such a human life remains fallow. It would have yielded a rich harvest if properly cultivated. God realization. A few days before Durga Puja, Indu and I went to Balaram Mandir to see Maharaj. After some time, he said, well, the great festival of the Divine Mother is here and we'll need some help in the monastery. You go to the monastery and help out. Do whatever they ask you to. During that particular festival, we stayed the night and spent the nights at the monastery. Gradually, we started feeling that the monastery was our own, just as Maharaj had tried to advise us. On the auspicious day of the Durga worship, we went to prostrate and give our and ask for Maharaj's blessings. He was seated on the veranda of the room that had been Swami Vivekananda's. As I stood up after bowing down, he said, did you perform your meditation this morning? Yes, somewhat. Next, he asked Indu, did you meditate? He was silent. At that, Maharaj became extremely annoyed and scolded us. I commanded you to do meditation every day, but you're wasting your time loafing around without meditating. Even if the whole world is destroyed, you should do your meditation first, then alone indulge in any other activity. He used to tell us, you must think of your Ishta, your chosen ideal of God, as smiling and blissful. Otherwise, meditation becomes dry. Before meditation, I occasionally think of something interesting and funny, and then start meditation. Whenever he found Indu and I alone, he asked, did you do as I asked you? You must follow my meditation instructions. So people would beg for this, but he just gives it to them, you see. They're very unusual. Did you do as I asked you to do? You must follow it rigorously. I'll give you some other spiritual instruction later. So without asking, they're getting all this stuff. Come to the monastery, here's the spiritual instruction. Are you doing it? After that, we did meditation and japa, as per advice, intensely for about 1.5 years. On one of these days, we went to Balaram Mandir to meet Maharaj. Seeing that he was alone, we bowed down to him. We made pranams. Indu was in front of me, and as he made pranams, Maharaj asked, as on earlier occasions, "Hi, how are you benefiting from your meditation?" Indu said, "Maharaj, actually, I don't enjoy prolonged meditation." When my turn came, he asked me the same question. My condition is the same as Indu's, if not worse. He said, "Why do you think it's happening like this?" What could we say? We kept quiet. Then he said, "Listen, every action has a reaction, but don't leave it. You must persevere, and that perseverance will bring success." He continued, "You must meditate very ardently and must earnestly pray to God and seek His grace with utmost yearning." He gave another valuable advice. "What I've asked you to do, go on doing it with great devotion and regularity. Do not seek for results." With those words, he assured us and saved us from disappointment, from the disappointment in trying to assess the profit or loss of our meditation. Don't seek for the results. He thus directed us to trust his words implicitly and persistently. All these were for our own good and welfare. So these are the memories of Swami Aseshananda. Swami Aseshananda was a disciple of the Holy Mother, and he was the attendant and personal secretary of Swami Saradananda for the last 6 or 7 years of his life. And he was, when he visited St. Louis, I think he was here about 4 times, he was in charge of our center in Portland, Oregon, where he stayed until his death in 1996. He was a very good speaker. I suggest you look at our videos online on our YouTube channel and see him speaking. So Swami Aseshananda starts with a quotation. "I'm going to introduce you to a holy man who does not speak about holiness. ... He lives it. This is what my friend Nirod, later Swami Akhilananda, said to me one day in 1917, while we were students at St. Paul Cathedral's Mission College in Calcutta. I'm always curious about the ellipses. So he doesn't talk about holiness, he lives it. He was a college student. At that time, I was enamored of Western civilization. Kant, Hegel, Schopenhauer. I didn't go to a Hindu college. St. Paul's, the college I preferred, was a residential college, and I'm grateful to the fathers who taught there. We students would play together and were free with our teachers. Even so, there was also strict discipline. When I was at college, initially, I thought of having a career. And again, I was fond of playing cricket and tennis. And then there was soccer and hockey. So certainly I had no plan to go and meet a Swami. But then Nirod that day proposed it. And I said, well, I can't go now. I have a tennis game scheduled, but that game won't take too long. So Akhilananda patiently waited for me, who had not much interest. After the match, I went with Akhilananda to Balaram Boshe's house. There I met Swami Brahmananda, and thus meeting such a great soul, I was drawn. I was drawn to a life of renunciation. Swami Brahmananda inspired me to lead such a life for the sake of realizing God. So Swami Brahmananda would often stay in Calcutta at Balaram Boshe's house, sometimes at the Udbodhan, but mainly at the big house of the joint family of Balaram Bose, who had passed away. His son took care of it and was a devotee. So lots of these stories happen there. And Swami Aseshananda, again, while he was a college student, wanted to meditate in the morning with Swami Brahmananda, and he asked for permission. I asked Swami Dhirananda, who I liked very much and who was also fond of me, if that would be possible. He said, you can come, but you must come very early. It was 5:30 in the morning when I arrived, and there was Maharaj in his room meditating. Just to see Maharaj meditating was a privilege, like seeing Shiva absorbed in divine contemplation for the good of the world. One became holy just by seeing Maharaj, a living presence of God. Now, I mentioned that Swami Aseshananda was the private secretary of Swami Saradananda. They were very close. Sometimes Brahmananda and Saradananda would conspire to tease us young monks. When the time came, when I hoped to be initiated in my first monastic vows, I received Swami Saradananda's permission to take a couple of days off and go to Bellarmine and get permission from Swami Brahmananda, who would give the vows. When I arrived, Maharaj was seated in an easy chair on the porch overlooking the Ganga, a spot close to the room that Vivekananda used to live in. He was relaxed, chatting with younger monks, including a couple of men who, like me, hoped to be initiated to their first vows. I said, Maharaj, I have come to receive your blessing. I will be ever grateful if you would kindly bless me with the vows of brahmacharya on the birthday of your guru, Sri Ramakrishna. Maharaj was quiet for some time. Finally, he said, yes, but on one condition. You must pay me 108 rupees in advance as an honorarium to the guru. Otherwise, no deal. Stunned, I said, Maharaj, I don't have a penny. This is impossible for me to pay such a large, at that time that a rupee was a lot of money. It's impossible for me to pay that much money. If you don't bless me, Maharaj, I'm lost. I have a suggestion. Swami Saradananda is very rich. He has all the money from the Udbodhan, and you are his attendant and private secretary. Go to Swami Saradananda now and get him to pay 108 rupees in advance. I was standing there speechless. Maharaj called another candidate and said, Govinda, you come from Midnapur. That's in Orissa. You will have to dance after the fashion that Orissa people are fond of. If you do it well, I will give you your vows. Without any hesitation, Govinda danced with suitable gestures of his hands to our great delight. Maharaj was pleased and laughed along with the rest of us. I, however, returned to the Udbodhan and narrated the whole sad story to Swami Saradananda with great seriousness. Yeah, very well. So here he is. I mean, this is not a short distance, and he's probably walking back and forth. He's going back and forth like a ping pong ball. Very well. You now return to Bellarmat and tell Maharaj that I am his, and everything in Udbodhan belongs to him as well. Whatever he asks will be given. With great relief, I returned immediately, prostrated before Maharaj, and repeated what Swami Saradananda had said in his message. Empty words! How am I to know if he will do as he promises, with nothing in writing? You are his secretary. Prepare something for him to sign. When I have his signature, then I will believe it. Back again, in turmoil. Saradananda was meditating. I sat, waited for him, none too patiently, perhaps not as quietly as I might have. When his meditation was over and he opened his eyes, he said, "Well, I thought it might be you." Did he agree? I told him the whole sad story. When I finished, he spoke without the slightest trace of emotion. Okay, I'll do even better than that. Tomorrow I'm going to go with you to Bellarmat. The next day we went, and after a few moments with Swami Brahmananda, Saradananda turned to me and said, "Why don't you wait outside?" At length, Saradanandaji came out, and once again showing absolutely no emotion, it has been arranged. You'll get your vows. Aseshanandaji continues, even now, well over 50 years later, I can only speculate what transpired between those two brother monks as they discussed my case and finally brought it to a conclusion. You see, he felt close to Maharaj. He was drawn to him. He was inspired by him. But respect has some kind of distance. And this kind of innocent prank has the effect of diminishing that to zero. You know, by the time he took his vows, he felt absolutely comfortable in Raja Maharaja's presence. So, those were the last vows that Swami Brahmananda presided over. That was in March of 1922. And in April, he went back to Balaram Mandir, had an attack of cholera, recovered from that, and then his old diabetes flared up, and he died on April 10th of 1922. So this is an account of his passing by Swami Siddheswarananda. Siddheswarananda was from South India. His father was the third prince of Cochin and later became Maharaj. So that was where he was coming from. And Siddheswarananda had already joined at our monastery in Madras. And his dad knew Swami Brahmananda as well. So this is the letter that Swami Siddheswarananda, whose pre-monastic name was Gopal, wrote to his father on April 18th. Swami Siddheswarananda founded our center in France and worked there for 20 years. Okay. Sri Ramakrishna Mat, Mylapore, Madras, April 18th, 1922. My dear father, Swami Sarvananda and I returned to Madras safe and sound on the 15th. The quite unexpected happened. Maharaj entered Mahasamadhi on the 10th night. He completely got over cholera and was fast recovering. At that stage, diabetes began to work, and he sank fast. He could only take a little food, and the wastage was double or triple the quantity of food consumed. His passing was a unique event and could only be expected of this spiritual son of Ramakrishna. Some 5 or 6 days before his Mahasamadhi, he told us he was not going to retain his body. He told Swami Vedanta he was going to leave. Vedanta said, "You must keep your body for some years more. Can you forcibly retain me?" If it is your wish, Maharaj, if you wish a little, you can retain it. Will you wish so? Maharaj only smiled. He told his attendants who had been serving him devotedly that he was going to give up the body, and that anyone wishing to give service to him, now was the time. Finish it. Such an attitude on his part frightened us. The allopathic doctors were at first full of hope, but they then became desperate. Ayurvedic treatment was started. He was suffering terribly, yet exceptionally calm. When the doctor asked him about this, he replied only quoting a verse from the Vivekachudamani, "Quiet endurance of all affliction." Swami Saradananda also tried to bring his mind back to the body and the world, telling him that they would all go together to Bhubaneswar after he got better. Maharaj said, "All that play of mine is done." It was the 8th night. Though suffering terribly, he was exceptionally calm. At 8 p.m., he called Suji Maharaj, Swami Nirvanananda, his disciple and attendant who had been serving him untiringly for 6 years, and addressing him with the utmost affection, said, "My son, my child, you've been serving your teacher. What shall I tell you? I'm a mendicant. Silver and gold have I none, but what I have I give to thee. You will have the knowledge of Brahman. You'll realize God. You have nothing to fear." Then he began to call one by one his disciples who were present, blessed them all, consoling them in the most endearing terms, giving them fearlessness, abhayam, asking them to immerse themselves in the thought of God. Meanwhile, his mind was climbing up and up to the regions of Bhava Samadhi. He was seeing Ramakrishna's luminous form. In the most endearing words, was asking, "Where is my Vivek, my brother, Vivekananda?" Ramakrishna showed him his beloved brother. Seeing Swamiji, Maharaj said, "Oh, yes, it's you." And then he called for all his brother monks who had passed before him and saw them all. Then away from the region of forms and visions, he entered the region of pure consciousness. Coming down from that state, he turned to his children, feeling sorry for them. He told them, "My boys, you're not able to cut through and get away from Maya, so you're not seeing these things." Then he called Krishnalal, Swami Dhirananda. The very name Krishna threw his mind off his physical plane, and he found himself standing before the most lovely form of Lord Krishna. So Maharaj wept with joy. "You know, Father," Sri Ramakrishna had said, that Maharaj was the real cowherd of Vrindavan, the eternal companion of Lord Krishna. So with all the flush of joy on seeing his divine playmate in Bhava Samadhi, Maharaj said, "Where are my anklets? Put anklets on my feet. I want to dance with Krishna." Swami Shivananda was then present, seeing the way Maharaj was talking. So Ramakrishna used to talk with the Divine Mother like this. He was having a conversation. No one else could see or hear the Divine Mother. Swami Shivananda said, We haven't seen anyone in Bhava Samadhi like this since the Master's time. It's just like him. He remained in this mood for a long time. Coming down, he turned to his disciples and said, "My Krishna is not the Krishna who punishes the wicked. My Krishna is not the austere Krishna. My Krishna is the Gopi Krishna, the cowherd boy, easily approachable, fun, happy." And these words he gave the key to his whole life. Whoever had seen Swami Brahmananda, whoever had studied him, could not be struck by his boyish, childlike nature. His whole attitude towards life was that he was playing with it. He was a co-player in the divine drama, not a victim of it. After he was continually saying Krishna and Ramakrishna, and now and then speaking about those beautiful eyes of Sri Krishna, his lotus face, and his blue color, he was now seeing the boy Krishna, holding him as a chum on his shoulder, telling him, "Come away, come away." As he descended from those spiritual heights, he began to speak to those around him about the highest knowledge of Brahman, repeating now again, Brahman. I told you that he had blessed the group of people around him. His heart expanding further, he blessed all those that had served him at any time in his life. Calling on Sri Ramakrishna, he was praying for the welfare of all Ramakrishna's spiritual children. Then his heart expanded and blessed all the devotees of the Lord and all the world. You can understand, seeing this, Father, how a Buddha can bless the whole world. This began at 8 p.m. until 7 a.m. the next day. He was in Bhava Samadhi all through it. I was very fortunate to be with Maharaj at the last moment. Just a few moments before the end, I managed to get a seat near his feet and touch them. With 200 devotees around him, and with all his brothers, such as Swami Shivananda and Saradananda, and Mahendranath Gupta and others, with all of us repeating the name of God by his side, he entered final illumination. There was complete calmness on his face. Generally, his eyes were very powerful, as if fathoming the depths of everything. During the last moment, they became 1,000 times more brilliant than in normal times, and concentrated as on some distant object. His face expressed his deep meditation. Now, keep in mind, he's diabetic. He's supposed to be in a diabetic coma, and he's in just the opposite of a coma. He is in such consciousness, it's unbelievable, and he's lifting everyone else up. His face expressed his deep meditation. He brought his hands to his chest in salutation, and silently breathing, entered Mahasamadhi. I remain yours affectionately, Gopal. I'll close with a prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. This ever-changing, interdependent world of things and beings is infinite. That unchanging, self-existent spiritual reality is infinite. This ever-changing universe, coming from that unchanging spiritual reality, that spiritual reality remains undivided, unchanged, complete, perfect, infinite. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.